Welcome everyone to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggins. So glad to have you on board. If you're watching us on the live, thank you for joining me tonight. If you're watching us after the fact on our YouTube channel, please, if you like the content in which we deliver on a weekly basis, do us a favor, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video like this drops into our channel. And go ahead and comment. I do like to interact with you guys, so put a comment in there and I will try to answer it. Let's see who's joining us tonight on the live feed. We've got about 55 folks that have joined us so far. I see Tim O'Goul has joined us, Randall, Michael, Terry, Greg, Ronald, George, Terry, Delta 9, and Grandpa Rails, as well as Jason True, just a few who have joined us tonight on Train Tuesday. I'm really excited about tonight's episode of Train Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the EMD GP18 as well as the GP7R from Rock Island. Now, there's new tooling with these models, and tonight we're going to be showing you both in the presentation as well as on the layout some of these models and the updates. And of course, there's one model in the bunch that I'm extremely excited about, one that I never thought I'd see produced by a major manufacturer like Athearn, but we'll talk about that in due time. Before we get started, let's do one more round of shout outs and see who's joining us. I see DJ Model Works is in the house, and Mr. J. Cure, Charles, Johnny, Elko Steam, Ronald, Dan, KCG, Rail Gilbert, and many, many more. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about EMD's GP18. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now remember, as I'm doing the presentation, I cannot see your comments. So if you have questions for the live stream, do me a favor, wait until after the presentation, and we'll have a moment for questions and answers. We've got some news for you at Athearn as well. So you're going to want to stick around to see that. So let's get started with another Train Tuesday. So let's talk a little bit about the GP18. Now the EMD GP18 began production in late 1959. It was based on the builder's extraordinarily successful GP7s and GP9s, although the latter model, the GP9, was still in production at the time of the GP18. Now, the GP18 is considered the last of the builder's first generation models. Similar in appearance to the GP7 and GP9, the GP18 was slightly more powerful and came with the option of either a low or a high short hood, something that wasn't available unless it was a special request to EMD on the earlier 7s and 9s. It was also the one that used the final version of General Motors' first locomotive prime mover, which was the 16-cylinder Model 567 D1, which could produce 1,800 horsepower, hence GP18. Most powerful in that series at that time. It was just over 56 feet in length. The GP18 was the same length as the 7 and the 9, with the exception of new radiator grills, which, by the way, were also used with the GP20. From an outside perspective, spotting wise, they looked very similar to their earlier 7s and 9s. Now we are going to talk a little bit about a GP7 tonight as well, but these are GP7Rs and they're rebuilds. And we'll talk about those later in this episode. Now, GP18s, even though they were more powerful and they had some updates to them, believe it or not, they were not as successful in sales as the 7s and the 9s that preceded them. However, a lot of these GP18s, including some of the ones that we're going to cover tonight, are still in service. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First with Chicago Northwestern. We offered 3 different road numbers of the Chicago Northwestern. Now, if you pre-ordered these models, it's a possibility that you're enjoying them on your layout right now. I've been told that they are shipping from our distribution center, and pre-orders on these were pretty tight. So if you did not pre-order one of these and you see it in tonight's presentation, you might want to get a hold of your dealer right away because a lot of these road names have already sold out. So Chicago Northwestern ordered 6 GP18s from EMD in 1960. Now these units feature something kind of unique to CNW. These units featured 4 36-inch radiator fans instead of the more common 2 48-inch fans. And that was common practice for a later built EMD GP18 like the Chicago Northwesterns. However, their spotting feature, which was unique to CNW, were the 4 36-inch fans. Now, we've got a couple of here to show you. They're all going to have about the same details, and those details include the late walkway with inspection holes, frame side mounted air tanks, large 2,350 gallon fuel tank. These have the dual Blatt style horns. You know exactly what those sound like. And of course the winterization hatches, non-dynamic brakes, and these also have the early pilots with footboards. Now the first one that we're offering is a 1980s era 1775, and this is the simplified paint scheme. Before this they had the end stripes and there was a little bit more to it. This is a simplified version. Now, just in time for America's 250th, back in the mid-70s, Chicago Northwestern also took one of their 18s and they painted it up in this very attractive bicentennial paint scheme. Now, this is a mid-1970s era. Didn't really last much past the 1970s. However, if you're modeling the 1970s, you're going to want to pick up one of these guys. 1776, of course, and this one also has the rotating beacon. Now, if you purchase this with the Tsunami 2 decoder, then function number 5 is going to get you that beacon to light up. In fact, I've got one here on the layout. Let's go ahead and switch views. There is 1776 in all its glory. Really cool paint scheme, really neat looking locomotive. And again, if you pre-ordered one of these, you're lucky. These did sell out very quickly. If you didn't pre-order, you're going to want to check with some of the larger Athearn dealers in your area or online, because again, this one was extremely popular. Really cool paint scheme. I've always liked bicentennial units. And the Chicago Northwestern just did a beautiful job on these locomotives. And of course, Athearn Genesis has captured it completely and authentically. Later, we've got a 1980s version. This is a slightly different paint scheme. This is the earlier paint scheme with the end stripes that I was talking about earlier. This also has dual side road numbers. If you look carefully on both the long hood and the short hood, it has 1777 spelled onto it. Slightly different font, and again, the end stripes, something that the previous model that I showed you doesn't have. So if you're a Chicago Northwestern modeler, you can definitely justify getting all 3 of these models. Here's one I think a lot of you guys were probably shocked to see us actually produce. This is an interesting little railroad, the Central California Traction. Central California Traction started as an interurban streetcar line back in 1906. Freight operations run between Stockton and Lodi, California. If you're a fan of the band Creedence Clearwater Revival, or CCR for short, you've probably heard a song about Lodi. Well, that's what they're talking about, Lodi, California. In the early 1980s, CCT purchased 2 former Rock Island GP18s to help replace their aging Alco fleet. And they painted them in this attractive bright red and white scheme, and they were used all over the system. However, by 2010, they were sold into private ownership, and they've since been replaced with SW1500s and 3 Brookville rebuilt hybrid locomotives. But if you're modeling 1981 and throughout the 80s up until 2010, there's 2 road numbers here for you. These are going to include some new tooling. Look carefully on the top of the long hood. You're going to see that we've tooled up new non-dynamic roof access hatches. That's brand new tooling. We've never offered that with any of the 7s, 9s, or 18s. These will have front and rear gyro lights, as you can see. Now that effect does work if you have the Tsunami 2 installed in your version. Of course, this is a former Rock Island unit, so it's going to have a 1,700 gallon fuel tank. You'll also notice that the skirting is partially cut, so it's partial skirting above the fuel tank. Look carefully there. You can see where they've removed it. Again, a lot of railroads did that in the 60s and 70s for maintenance reasons. The wheel bearings are different, so it depends on which road number you get, and they're specific to that road number. And they both have Nathan P5 horns. We're offering two road numbers, 1790, like you see on your screen, as well as 1795. And of course, both road numbers are available with or without Tsunami 2 sound. Here's another one that surprised a lot of folks, Midsouth Rail Corporation. Now, they are based out of Jackson, Mississippi, and they started back in 1986, and they purchased 373 miles of trackage from the Illinois Central Gulf Railroad. They acquired 4 former IC GP18s. This one being unique is it's the only one that was still in its high nose version. This unit was built as IC number 9404 back in 1960. The unit was retired and stored by the mid-2000s. So again, if you're a modeler that's modeling 80s, early 90s, and you want to do a shelf layout, this is the perfect locomotive to use for that. It's a small, short line, serves a few customers, and it's a really unique paint scheme. This too, if you look carefully, you will see it has the new tooling of the non-dynamic with the roof access hatches, so that's all new. 1,700 gallon fuel tank, short hood mounted bell. And these have, this one here actually has a Nathan P3 horn, and you'll notice too that all the bell housings for the horn are all pointing forward. Really cool locomotive, one that you probably didn't think you'd see a major manufacturer do. Well, we get a lot of requests for Conrail, and if you're modeling Conrail in the early 1980s, we've got a treat for you. These are former Lehigh Valley locomotives. We got 2 road numbers to discuss tonight. Now, when the Lehigh Valley was absorbed into Conrail back in 1976, most of the motive power was eventually repainted into then new corporate colors like you see here. A few kept their high short hoods past the merger and were used for pulling freights on former Lehigh Valley trackage and other parts of the Conrail system. So we've got 2 road numbers here, this one being former Lehigh Valley number 302. Both share common characteristics as far as details. They're going to have an origin from the Lehigh Valley. They're going to have winterization hatches, dynamic brakes, Nathan K3 horns, and they're going to have the smaller 1,300 gallon fuel tank, which you can see there. It's a lot shorter than the other ones that we've shown thus far. 7499, also 1980 era. This is former Lehigh Valley number 305. It shares a lot of the same details and characteristics of the former unit. However, this one also has a hood-mounted paper air filter box you can see there on the long hood, as well as modified cut skirting on the left. So some neat little features. Even though they both work for Conrail, even though they both came from Lehigh Valley, there's some subtle differences there, and that's where Genesis really shines. Now here is one I definitely did not think I would ever see a major manufacturer like Athearn produce, and that is the Nessie. Let me clarify that. That is the New England Southern. Now the New England Southern Railroad, or the Nessie as we like to call her, was a name that we lovingly called this railroad. It was established back in 1981 to take over freight operations on the former Boston and Maine. And those lines were in central New Hampshire. Mainly, a lot of times, freight was picked up in Manchester, New Hampshire, and brought north to Concord and even up as far as Pennacook, New Hampshire. In 1985, the railroad was actually seeing a lot more customer. They needed a little bit bigger locomotive than what they currently had. And so what they ended up doing was they purchased this former Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific EMD GP18, former road number 1341, painted it in this green and yellow paint scheme that you see here. And the unit served this short line faithfully until its sale in 2007. Now, this locomotive still is operating for a railroad. It's now currently operating as unit number 1801 on the New Hampshire North Coast. So it didn't stray too far from its original home. So really cool little railroad. We only did this one because New England Southern just had the one GP18. Now this has a 1,700 gallon fuel tank. Of course, it's a former Rock Island unit. You'll notice too that there are strobes on top of the roof. Now I can tell you that when I was rail fanning this locomotive in the late 80s, early 90s, those strobes were still there. However, I don't remember seeing them operate. However, it doesn't mean that when the railroad first got it and in the mid 80s that they were not used. However, if you buy the Tsunami 2 version, that does work. It's function number 5. In fact, I think I've got that one here on the layout as well. We'll go ahead and bring that into camera view so that you can see for yourself. Again, a really neat little short line. One that I didn't think we would ever do, but it just so happened that we had enough requests from the East Coast, and we went ahead and did that. Let's take a look at the one on the layout here quickly. And there it is. You can see the beacons do flash. Interesting thing about this locomotive, on the long hood, the actual logo, New England Southern, much like what you see on this side of the long hood, is embezzled on the nose. But they never finished the. It's almost like having a project that you don't finish the decals. They never put the logo on the nose or the other side of the long hood. So it's kind of a cool, interesting paint scheme. Definitely one that I remember, so you can guarantee you I'll have one of these on my layout, and a lot of folks back east will be having these. Now, if you're going to the Springfield, the big show in Springfield, Massachusetts, in just a couple of weeks, believe it or not, we'll have this one on display, and we'll also have the other GP18s as well as the Rock Islands on display as well. I want to also thank, while I'm thinking of it, I want to thank Boston and Maine Historical Society Club President Rick K. Forey for giving us additional information, and Peter Dearness, the original owner of the New England Southern, for helping us get this model as accurate as possible. So here's one, and as a New Englander, I'm just going to be honest with you, I could not roll my R's to save my life. So rather than butcher up the Spanish language, I'm going to let you read it for yourself. You can see what railroad this is. Trust me, I tried for about 20 minutes, and I just don't have it in me to make that word sound anything close to what the original pronunciation is. But this railroad operates between Mexicali, Baja California, and Benjamin Hills, Sonora, and Mexico. Though through a few different mergers, they finally became part of the MDM Railroad in 1987. Before then, though, they had this really attractive paint scheme. And this, honestly, the images just don't do it justice. It's a really cool paint scheme, simple, but still really bright. Really like this, this locomotive. Now, we just did 2306. It has a Leslie 3-chime horn, dynamic brakes, and a 1,700-gallon fuel tank. This is one that sold out quick, so if you didn't pre-order these, you're going to want to talk to your Athearn dealer, and hopefully you can get one of these. On Norfolk and Western, beginning in late 1959, they purchased over 45 GP18s, actually one of the bigger customers of the GP18. They also inherited 10 from the Nickel Plate Railroad. Now, the Norfolk Western units purchased new were set up for long hood forward operation and featured dynamic braking. The Nickel Plate units, however, were set up as short hood forward, and the front of the hoods featured a gyrolight and non-dynamic brakes. So even though by now they were, you know, under the same umbrella as far as corporate ownership, there were some neat little features. Now, we've got 3 that we've put here in the Genesis series for you to pick up. Of course, these are all three going to be in the Pelver blue with what a lot of rail fans call the hamburger logo. If you look at the Norfolk and Western on the cab, to me, it does kind of remind me of a certain burger chain. We actually still have one of these Norfolk and Western signs and not too far from me in Monticello, Illinois. And every time I see it, that's what I think of. These are going to be dynamic or non-dynamic per the road number, meaning per their lineage, whether they're nickel plate or Norfolk Western. These are going to have 1,700-gallon fuel tanks and the pilots with footboards. Kind of interesting. You can see at the top there, we've got 3 different road numbers, and they're available with or without sound. I have provided links in the video description below that go to the original PDF announcements, so you can check those out, as well as going to our website and seeing these. Now, I know a few of you on tonight's live are going to be going crazy about these Southern locomotives. We've been getting a lot of requests for Southern railroads in general, but of course, the Southern rail line has been getting a lot of interest, and as such, paying attention to what the customer wants, we have been offering more Southern lately. We've got 3 different Southern locomotives that we've going to talk about regarding GP18s. The first one here is 171. Now, these are former CG and TA and G locomotives. They're short hood forward operation, which is kind of cool for a Southern locomotive. Horn and bell are placed per the prototype, and these have the smaller 1,300-gallon fuel tank. Now, the first one that we're starting with is a mid-1970s era Southern unit 171. It's a former CG locomotive. It has a Nathan P5 horn, pilot-mounted footboards, hood-mounted bell, and Southern paint. But if you look very carefully on the cab, you'll see that it has CFG sub-lettering. Really cool locomotive. Here's something for you. Put this in the comments if you agree with me or not. If Norfolk Southern backdated their paint scheme to this paint scheme here, would it be more interesting? I think it would. I really appreciate the Southern tuxedo style paint scheme. Simple but elegant at the same time. Here is another former Central of Georgia locomotive. This also has a Nathan P5 horn, pilot-mounted footboards, hood-mounted bell, and even though it's a Southern unit, you can see that the Central of Georgia lettering is still on the long hood. Really cool, really unique. This is the only one like this out of the 3. This is an early 1970s era locomotive. And then finally, the last one in the group, this is number 179. This is a former TA and G, number 50. It has Nathan P3 horns, and all of the bells are facing forward and rear. You can see there's 2 sets of horns. You've got one on the front, one on the back. You've also got a short hood mounted bell. That's kind of unique. You know, if you're used to the Southern, you usually ran long hood forward and the bell was usually on the long hood. This is a little bit different here. And this one too, it's painted in Southern corporate colors. However, it does have the TA and G sub-lettering on the cab. Really cool. This is an early 1970s era model. Now, the only one in the bunch that is not a GP18, these are GP7s, but Rock Island called them GP7Rs. Now, during the late 1970s, Rock Island rebuilt a large batch of their locomotives to help extend their lives. The main spotting features of these so-called GP7Rs were the new addition of roof-mounted engine access doors and a new coat, of course, bankruptcy blue and white. Many of these ended up finding homes on other railroads after the Rock Island went bankrupt in 1980. GP7R number 4506 was recently restored back to its original colors and now can be seen operating in a museum here in Illinois. Love it or hate it, when I was a younger modeler, a lot of the old Rock Island guys really despised bankruptcy blue. Gen Xers and the younger guys really do appreciate the blue and white. I think it's a really cool paint scheme. And we had a ton of requests to run these models. We wanted to run them earlier, but we didn't have the tooling for it. Now we've got the tooling for it. Rock Island, your requests have been answered. We're doing 3 different road numbers on these Rock Island units. These all have the new non-dynamic roof with the access hatches. These have early pile style headlights, firecracker antenna, early pipe style handrails. That's kind of cool. If you take a look at early GP7s and look at the stanchions, they're not going to be the pressed metal. They're going to look like pipes. And that was kind of cool because usually by the time they went to the GP9s and the GP18s, they were your standard stanchions like you see on any EMD. Well, the GP7Rs, they had a lot of updates, but that's one thing that they kept. That's a holdover from its early EMD days. These are going to have Nathan P5 horns, and this particular model, 4506, is a late small louver battery box doors, standard EMD fuel tank, and we've included in the polybag inside the model box the optional whip antenna. So if you want to simulate 4506 as it appears today, you can do that. Up next is 4523. This is a late small louver battery box doors. This one has the rebuilt Rock Island style fuel tank. And lastly, early large louver battery box doors on 4540. This also has the rebuilt Rock Island style fuel tank. So before we go into the features, I do have the Rock Island unit here. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the screen, move him into position. And let's see here. So you can kind of see that early pile style headlight. Kind of hard to see because the white gets a little washed out here in the studio, but you've got the earlier GP7 style stanchions versus the standard EMD style that was common with the 9s and later. I'm going to move this camera carefully and show you that new tooling. Yeah, let's see if we can zoom in on that a little bit. That is all new tooling right there. So these are the access hatches. So they removed the dynamic brakes and they put these access hatches in. And we've wanted to do these GP7Rs for a number of years. You guys were requesting them for a number of years, and we finally have them. Again, if you pre-ordered these, you're probably already enjoying these and you already know this. However, if you did not pre-order, I highly suggest you contact your dealer right now because Rock Islands, they sold out first. Those models just sold out right away. This is something that's been highly requested for a number of years, and this was also one that a lot of you guys are asking on our social media, hey, when are these coming in? Are these coming in soon? And we're fortunate to have them now. All right, let's go to the features of these locomotives. So like I was saying earlier, there's the new tooling of the roof access hatches on select models. You have the option of getting these either with the Tsunami 2 from Soundtracks, or if you want to put in your own decoder and speaker combination, you can do that. These are available as DCC ready as well. Those will include the quick plug and play technology, 21-pin NEM connector. So it's a real simple affair. Of course, they have see-through windows, but the cool thing is they do have a full cab interior. So for guys like me that have a small shelf layout, if you want to spend a nice weekend super detailing and weathering your locomotive, it's a lot easier. You can put a crew in there. In my case, New England Southern, I've got a picture of it somewhere of a black lab riding in the cab. So I'm going to have to find somebody to do a black lab for my locomotive. Now, the minimum radius on these locomotives, they are a Jeep, so they'll negotiate down to an 18-inch radius curve. They still look better on a 22-inch radius curve, but trust me, if you've got a small layout and you just want to add one or more of these to your layout, you can do that because with an 18-inch radius, you've got nothing to worry about. So with that, I'm going to go turn back to comments and questions and see if any of you have questions about what we've talked about tonight or maybe you've got some other Athearn questions. Let's see. BN Green says, can't go wrong with any bicentennial paint. I would have to agree. Here's a good suggestion. Thank you for the Sonora Baja, California, but please make them for the NDM scheme. We have 40 of them from 7,500 to 7,539. That sounds like a great idea, and that sounds like a great suggestion for our email, which is athearnproductsuggestions@athearn.com. If at any point in a program like this you think, hey, you've got that tooling done, you can do this model as well. We're always looking for suggestions to do the next run of a particular model. So go ahead and send those suggestions to Athearn-productsuggestions@athearn.com. And we look forward to that. We wouldn't have done the Rock Island GP7Rs if we hadn't had folks take advantage of this email. Let's see. As far as pre-orders go, what is the minimum order quantity needed for production to happen on locomotives and freight cars? Well, it varies depending on the project. Locomotives, obviously, are going to have a higher number. That's something that we don't give out. But depending on what the item is, depending on if it's a freight car, passenger car, there's all kinds of different things. Generally, the reason why we ask you to pre-order is because that tells us how many to produce. Now, if we have pre-orders open for, in this case, we've got pre-orders now open for 60 days. If you place your pre-order, you can just know that when those are produced, they will be delivered and you'll get them. That being said, a lot of folks have told me that what's the cost to pre-order? That is through your dealer. Talk to your dealer. I do know there are some dealers that may ask for some type of deposit, but there's also a lot of dealers out there that don't ask for any deposit. They just want your information and the acknowledgement that when the model comes in, that you will pick it up. Okay, I want to see, we've got one from Anthony. Anthony's weekly update on the Cali cars. The website currently says TBA arriving December 26th. Is this true, or will they be out by spring, summer, or after the Amherst show? Our goal is to have them after the Amherst show. I talked with management today, and we're still working through some details. I do know that John's going to have some samples at the Amherst show, so you're going to want to come by. We're going to be set up in the Better Living Center, booth number 32A, and you're going to want to talk to John because he's got some samples. We're not too much further out. I'm hoping that we're going to see these by summer. Like I said, we're just going through the very final phases of some refinements. Let's see what other questions we have. This is a question that we get a lot, and so we might as well address it here tonight. Will any of your models be offered with the factory installed Blue Nami? We gladly pay the difference. Blue Nami is worth it over Tsunami 2, and we give you a leg up over the other brand decoders. So there's a couple of things. On first glance, it looks real easy for us to just pop in a Blue Nami versus a Tsunami. Unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. Now, we have talked to our partner Soundtracks about it. It's not quite as simple as just dumping one and adding another. Sometimes there's space limitations. Sometimes it's design limitations. Of course, there is going to be a cost difference too. And while you may feel strongly about Blue Nami, there may be others that don't feel as strongly about Blue Nami, and they would rather have the traditional Tsunami 2 or the DCC Ready. Now, that doesn't mean in the future that we won't offer Blue Nami. It's something that we're still considering, but those are some of the factors that we have to take into account. Also, do we really want to have one more SKU for each road name, meaning one that's DCC ready, Tsunami 2, and one Blue Nami. These are all things that we as a company have to consider and weigh our options. Let's see, question for Jim. When are the modern UP GP38Ns coming out? Because I thought they were going to be out this month. Also, thank you for the GP7. They look great. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And more importantly, our product developers appreciate hearing that, as they're always busy working on these models. To answer your question on the GP38s, we're looking at spring, late spring, maybe early summer. They are on their way. There is a possibility we might have some of those as pre-production samples at Amherst. But keep your eyes peeled. If I do get any photographs from product development, I will certainly put it in the email newsletter. Let's see what else we've got going on here. I'm going to go back a little bit too in case I missed anything. So Sparky brings up a comment, and it's something that we are addressing. Jim, I did put down a deposit on 6644 with a Canadian dealer, and now being told fourth quarter of next year before I get it. Why is that? So pay attention. In the next few days, you're going to be seeing some announcements. We did have some folks contact us saying that they had pre-ordered these models and they didn't get them. Some of our Canadian dealers also had contacted our sales reps and Horizon Management saying the same thing. We did some looking into it. We wanted to make sure that we hadn't missed anything. We looked into it, and for whatever reason, yes, there were some that were shorted their pre-orders. What we're going to be doing is twofold. We're going to re-announce the military units, the SD70 ACU Canadian Pacific military units, mainly because those were the ones that were the most pre-ordered, and for whatever reason, those pre-orders were shorted. We're going to open those pre-orders up starting now until January 16th. So if you were one of those folks and your dealer was not able to get that pre-order, that's what he's talking about. He's already done the pre-order for you through his Horizon rep, and you are going to get them in late fall. So rather than waiting 2 years again, we're actually going to do another run of them, and they'll be coming here in the fall. Likewise, if you saw your buddy with any one of these SD70 ACUs and you thought, man, I should have pre-ordered one of those, this is one of those opportunities where opportunity is knocking and you don't want to give up. So from now until January 16th, you can put in a pre-order with your hobby dealer. Your hobby dealer's already been made aware, and they can put those in the system, and this fall you can be enjoying your own CP military locomotive. So Sparky, I hope that answers that question for you. We apologize that something like this happened. We're not perfect, and we try our best, but every once in a while something happens. We're going to do our best to make it right. Let's see. Jim, I'll send pictures of the NDM GP18. I hope you go ahead with this project. Thank you, from Ricardo Hernandez Lacienda. I hope I didn't butcher your name too much. Thank you. You know, I was saying earlier we get a lot of requests for Southern railroads. We're also getting a lot of requests for south of the border railroads, which is really cool because Mexican railroads have the coolest paint schemes. And honestly, those paint schemes sell. So by all means, send that information to our product developer. I can't promise you we'll do it in the next release, but we'll probably consider it for some future release. Sparky, you're more than welcome. It's been a little bit coming, but I'm glad to say that we're finally moving forward with that. Sid from Ohio is on board. And he says, what models will be at Amherst this year? Well, we're going to have a lot of models. And Sid, I know you're in Ohio. Doesn't take that long to get to Springfield, Mass. I hope you stop by the booth. We're going to have some great models. We're going to have the Dash 9s that we talked about on Train Tuesday last week. We're going to have these GP18s, the GP7Rs. We're also going to have some FP7s that a lot of you have been waiting for, some SD40-2s, SD38-2s, And John has assured me that he is bringing stuff that even I have not seen yet. I love Amherst because it's one of the few times I get to see John, as well as Robert, another one of our product developers. We get together, we see all the cool stuff those guys are working on, and more importantly, I get to share that with you. So stop by the booth at the Amherst show. It's technically known as the 2026 Railroad Hobby Show. We're going to be in the Better Living Center, booth number 32A, and we're going all out this year for our 80th anniversary. Let's see. My Bad Luck Charm. That is an interesting screen name. He says product development likes feedback. Okay, I hope John, Janik, Robert, all of those guys are listening to tonight's program, because this is just for you. Okay, I just got my Wabash F7 today. This was my first F7 in 40 years. This one looks great. The detail is beautiful. The paint is delightful. Totally amazing job. Well done. Thank you for letting us know. You know, one of the hardest things about being a product developer is you spend countless hours at a desk researching, looking for information, contacting people. And unfortunately, a lot of our product developers are so busy, they don't even get to go out unless it's to their own personal train show. I really encourage you guys, if you like the products, let our product development know. This is what keeps them building such great models. If without our product development staff, frankly, I wouldn't have a job. So thank you for that comment. Good evening, Michael Zabrowski. We've got some Sioux line coming out here for you pretty soon. Michael, an old work buddy of mine, modeling the Sioux line. We've got some SD40-2s coming in Sioux line paint, so you might want to check that out in the next few weeks. Good to see you. Let's see what else we've got. Tim. There we go. Hey, Jim, I try not to pester you too often. No worries. But are the Athearn level BNSF and GP60s still on track for Q1 2026? I checked this morning. So far, they are still on track. Probably going to be late Q1, but they still look like they're going to be on track. I haven't heard of any delays, and I'm right there with you. The BNSF ones are on my list as well. Randall says, hey, Jim, I couldn't chat because I was driving back from Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah, you don't want to chat while you're driving, that's for sure. I heard you mention Athearn's 80th anniversary. Any commemorative models for the occasion? Absolutely. We're going to be doing some. Throughout 2026, you'll see some announcements. Not only are we going to do special paint schemes like the ones that we announced for the Wheeling and Lake Erie for the 250th birthday of the United States, but we're also going to do 80th Athearn anniversary locomotives, rolling stock, possibly a caboose as well. So keep your eye on our announcements, keep your eye on our newsletter, and hopefully we will have something that you would like to add to your collection. Rodney wants to know if we're going to the Denver show in April. Unfortunately, no, I will not be making it this year. That is a show I typically like to go to. Unfortunately, this year it was just not in the cards. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, Randall, I think we do have some roundhouse models that we're planning on doing some commemorative stuff with. So this is a question I saw a lot on social media when this CNW GP7R is coming in. They're coming in a little bit later. I know those were new tooling as well. So you'd think they would have been put in with this batch. Not quite. They're going to be a little bit later in 2026. I don't have a firm date for you, but I think we're trying for late summer, early fall. Again, that is just a rough estimate. Let's see. What else we got? Jeff commenting he just got his California Traction GP18. Thank you. Good. I'm glad you got that. That is one that did sell out quickly. So I'm glad to hear that. Well, we got time for one, maybe two more questions, and then we'll go on with a little bit of news, and then I'm going to let you guys get back to it, get back to your layouts, get some modeling done. Believe it or not, we're only about 2 weeks out for one of the biggest train shows, well, probably the biggest train show in the United States, and that is the Railroad Hobby Show. That takes place every year in Springfield, Massachusetts, put on by the Amherst Society Model Railroaders. Really enjoy that show. That is my favorite show, mainly because it's in my backyard, and one that I've been going to since the middle 90s. Let's see. A lot of folks asking about high-nose GP38-2s. We do have the tooling for that. We will probably run some of those again. A lot of the lines that you're asking for are Mexican roads that we have not done. Again, if you've got some good photos, if you've got some good material, feel free to send it to us, Athearn Product Suggestions, because that just gives us more material in which we can make more locomotives. So it's possible we might be able to do those in a future run. Challenger update. Last I have been told by product development, they are pushing, there's no guarantees, they are pushing to try to get those out by fall of this year. Signal Up Productions, I'm road tripping to the Amherst from Illinois. I'm going to do the same, except I'm not going to road trip like I normally do. I'm going to fly out because I need to get out there and set up the booth. Do be safe, especially as you go through the Buffalo, New York area, that time of year. Lake effect snow is a thing. Be safe, but more importantly, have fun and stop by the booth and say hi to myself and all the others at the Athearn booth. Jeremy, that one is a lot further down the road. We're probably looking at early next year on that one. We announced that one not too long ago. Yes, lake effect snow is definitely a pain. All right, well, I think that's it. I think a lot of you guys enjoyed the stream tonight. I want to thank you for joining us. We had 189 guys show up on the stream. You know what? I'm going to finish with Rogan here. Where is he? There he is. Conrail FP7s will be in soon. Yes, you're probably going to see them in the newsletter probably next week. We are photographing production samples right now, which means we should actually see them start shipping to dealers probably in about 6 to 8 weeks, maybe sooner. So yeah, they're coming. All right. Terry wants to know about the truck in the background. That is an Athearn KW and an Athearn 45-foot Conrail that we did about 2 years ago. All right. All right, well, I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. Before I move on, one more side note and announcement. I want to remind everyone that we are still hiring for a product developer. If you have CAD experience and you are well versed in primarily North American locomotives, both diesel and steam, we want to talk to you. Now, in the past, the way it was set up, a lot of folks were getting confused because they thought it was an Illinois-based position only. HR has confirmed with me that while we would prefer an Illinois-based person, we are not closing you out if it's remote. If it's your state is one of the states that we can have a remote hire in, we will consider it for the right person. So if you think that's something that you'd like to do, and I can tell you our product development team would welcome you and love the support, you can go to horizonhobby.com, go to the homepage, scroll to the bottom of the page and select the careers tab, and it will take you to the Athearn opening. So again, we're looking for a product developer that's got CAD experience and extensive knowledge on North American prototype models. Well, that's all I've got for you on this Train Tuesday. I want to thank you all for joining me on this Train Tuesday. We'll be back next Tuesday to talk about some new products. Until next time, everyone, I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, be safe. Happy New Year. Do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Take care, everyone.